Hi, we're here back with the Toyota RAV4 Prime. This is an SE edition 2021, but the 2022 is very similar, so there's not much change to it. What we wanted to discuss today are my pet peeves with the car. What I hate would be a big word, but there's a lot of things that I'd like to point out that I just don't like about the car. So I know there's lists out there. I mean, this is right now I'm up to about 12. If there's any more that I can come up with as we go around, I'll add them as bonus materials at the end. So please stay tuned. If you like this video, by the way, give us a thumbs up and of course subscribe. That really helps us out. So let's go around and let's take a quick look at what we don't like, both from a functionality point of view around the exterior and the interior. And let's take a look. So let's take a look at this area of the car. So one of the first things is the charging. And the big thing is this door is just huge. I mean, usually for the gas and so forth, you'd expect about, 3/4 of this as opposed to the whole thing. So it does stick out quite a lot. That is inconvenient. Once you're inside, the other thing is if you want to go and charge, what you'll find is in the winter, if it's snowing or hailing or something like that, the water or the snow will come and accumulate around it, and that is a problem. So what that forces us to do is to either add a membrane to this, so there's a rubber, or some people put in basically a little tent around it or bag, just to keep the snow and the temperature out when they're charging. So if you're charging outside, it is a problem. I charge it in the garage, so it's not so bad, but it is annoying when I'm outside. I've seen it happen before. Now, talking about the door, because I'm not quite done with this door, is how close it is to the actual rear door. I mean, it's very close. And if you're in a garage, for example, and you park, I mean, just, it takes out a lot of space. The other thing is, you'll notice that there's not a whole lot of room here to get in and out. So if you have a child seat, for example, this may be a problem, or may make it a little more difficult really to get in and out. I know some of other videos out there have measured the back, and it is not more narrow than some of the other cars out there, even some of the older RAV4s. So getting in and out, the door doesn't open more than this, so it's kind of in the way. I mean, you could do it, obviously, but I mean, that could have, they could have made a hinge that opens up more. I certainly think that would have helped. So while we're in the back, the other part also is the brakes themselves. I don't know why, but this car, in comparison to the other cars that I have, a Lexus, a Honda, and so forth, the brakes are rusting a lot faster. Now, part of this, I'm going to answer my own question, part of this is because there's a lot of regeneration that happens when you're slowing down. If you put it into a mode, for example, sports mode, then what you'll find is that instead of braking, it's actually just creating power, feeding it back into the battery, thus slowing you down. So you're actually using the brakes less. In my original video, I said this was a good thing because you're going to wear down your brakes a lot less. Now I'm telling you it might be a problem, because if you're not braking an awful lot, if you're not using the car an awful lot, and perhaps you have it in a garage that's a bit damp, or perhaps it's damp outside because of weather, you'll find that your brakes, because they're not used as much, may end up rusting more than you'd expect. So don't leave your car sitting there for too long. Talking about leaving your car sitting there for too long, the other thing that I'd advise is not leaving your car unattended, for example, for weeks on end. If you're going to go somewhere for a month at the airport, your 12-volt battery in the car may not work anymore. I've seen a lot of people complain on forums and so forth that it's causing all kinds of crazy messages, or just won't start when you get to it. Because don't forget that even though you have the hybrid battery, the whole battery to feed the EV, there is a 12-volt battery which is actually in the back of the car, and that is very important just to get things started. So if that goes dead, you're going to have problems. And some people have reported all kinds of little messages saying the hybrid system isn't working, or other components are not working, and are being told to go to the dealership. And of course they get there only to find out the 12-volt battery is insufficiently charged, and it's causing I guess, computer glitches and other problems that misdiagnosed, and you end up being told that there's various functions that don't work in your car. So that's really annoying. Okay, so one of the top peeves that I have is this gauge right here. And what it does is it shows you, in this case, it's for the kilowatt hours that it uses. And the scale on the left of it, I don't know if you can see, it's 0, 5, 10. So it literally has a scale of 10 when most of the time you'll be between 20 and let's say 30. So this is completely pointless since you're always on the top. And if you go into the gasoline engine, so the HV mode, I'm going to change it. What you'll see is now you're getting 0 to 30 and you're doing 4.6, 5, 6. So this one could have been 0 to 10. And the other one here should have been 0 to 30. So they seem to have switched them. I have no clue why Toyota did this, and I urge someone to please change it and fix it. So one of the issues that I've seen, I've actually reported that to the dealer, is in my previous video, the one that says extreme cold, I was able to notice while making the video that there was condensation inside the headlight, and not just one, but both of them. So what that's telling me is that there's humidity inside of there. Is that a defect, or is that something that is, you know, badly sealed, or I'm not sure. We did inspect them at the dealership and they offered to replace them. From what I've been able to read is the replacement parts also have the problem. So if you're living somewhere south, you probably don't have the issue, or it'll be harder to diagnose or to see anyways. But here, as soon as it got very cold, I was able to see frost on the inside of the headlights. Check out that other video and you'll see it if you go check out my extreme video. So potentially longer term, what that might do is condense and cause problems to electronics in here, the headlights themselves, or perhaps corrode wires, and who knows what that can do. So thought I'd point that out. Last but not least, there is also one of the things that I'm looking at right now is a major wire that goes from the main battery back to the engine that apparently corrodes underneath it. I don't have video of that right now since this is relatively new to me and I've got to do a bit more research on it, but I've gotten a lot of texts and emails asking me if I was aware of it and whether this is going to be a problem longer term. I understand it's affecting mainly the RAV4 hybrids right now, and potentially starting in 2021 they changed the part. It is an orange cover somewhere underneath the car for one of the main lines. So the cruise control in cold temperatures, especially if it's snowing heavily or if you have ice rain or you have hail, that kind of thing, what it does is it accumulates on the front of the car and all of a sudden you will not be able to use the cruise control. Now I understand that obviously for safety reasons you might not want the cruise control, but if you're on the highway and it's relatively dry, you may not be able to engage the cruise control even at lower speeds, just because the sensor in the front or something somewhere is sensing the snow or sensing there's a coat of ice. So the RAV4 Prime comes with CarPlay, which is great. The problem that I'm having is this USB here, the USB plug, basically is the main plug. What I mean by that is if you wanted to play, let's say a USB stick, so you put an MP3s on there, you want to put them in, great. You just simply plug it in, click on audio, and then you can go around and play with that. I'm not a big fan of the audio, the one that's built in, but that's a whole different question, or a whole different problem, I guess. Now, the big peeve is if you want to use CarPlay, you're going to need to connect your phone, so you can have a wire going from here to your phone, or of course you could use this, for example. This is a CPlay 2 Air, which is basically going to make it wireless from my phone to here. But there's a single plug, so I cannot have both a USB key and my iPhone plugged in at the same time. And even though some of these devices may appear to have an extra USB here, it will not feed the USB songs directly back into the radio. So that's not going to work. So in other words, we have a single plug. If you want to charge, of course, your iPhone, you can using the wire or one of the plugs from inside the center console. That will work. But in order to feed both a USB and an iPhone, it's the same plug. You cannot do both. So what I would have suggested, or I would have liked, is to have the USB inside of the center console, and potentially have the iPhone there in the front. So that would have allowed you to have both options when you click on Source or click on CarPlay, that you could have selected one or the other at the same time. If you're driving, if you're doing long distance, it's nice to have the option and not have to plug and unplug. Of course, most of us want to have our iPhones plugged in at all times, just because if you're going to get phone calls or you're going to get texts and whatnot, you want to have the ability to use Siri and use all that and have it on the screen of the car at all times. So that's my pet peeve with that. So when it's really cold outside, or colder anyways, it's below freezing, and you still have the ability to be in EV mode. If you want to save power, basically you can't turn off the heat, or I imagine you've got the same issue when you've got heat and you want to save energy, you don't put the air conditioning on. The pet peeve is that basically if you were to turn the entire system off, so there's no heating, no nothing, press the off, and what you'll find is that you still have air coming out. And of course, if it's relatively cold outside, you've got cold air coming in. So at that point, you will definitely start freezing sooner or later, and that will force you to turn back on the heat at some point. If you are at HV mode, then the air that comes in because of the engine is warm, so that's fine. But the second you go into EV mode, so you end up having to be in short spurts of EV mode with no climate control. That, I mean, I don't know if there's a way of having the ability to shut down the airflow completely, but that would be useful. Well, thanks for watching. Those were my pet peeves with the RAV4 Prime SE. Of course, if you want to write some comments below, really appreciate those. I'm Bob Pellerin, CTOBOB. Of course, go ahead and visit us at www.ctobob.com, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.